Hello everybody, this is Mr. Kimmel with a screencast for Life Science. In this lesson, we are going to learn about probability and genetics, or the likelihood something will be inherited. Recall that an allele is the different form of a trait. For example, in pea plants, there are different alleles for height, as shown here. A dominant allele is the allele that shows up whether you have two copies of it. In pea plants, the tall allele is the dominant allele. A recessive allele is the allele that shows up only when you have both copies of it. In pea plants, the short allele is the recessive allele. The genotype is the genetic makeup of an organism. That is, it is the alleles that have been inherited for the trait. Recall that one allele is inherited from the mother and one is inherited from the father. And genes are located on homologous chromosomes. We write our genotypes by using a capital letter to represent the dominant allele and a lowercase letter to represent the recessive allele. The letter used doesn't really matter, but generally it is the first letter of the trait or the dominant allele it is representing. For example, in Mendel's experiments, he found that tall pea plants are dominant to short pea plants. We can use a T to represent the dominant allele, tall. We will use a lowercase t to represent the recessive allele, short. A tall plant will have either the genotype, both capital T's, or one capital T and one lowercase t, while the short pea plant will have the genotype of two lowercase t's. A phenotype is how the genotype is physically expressed in the organism, or how the gene looks. In our pea plant example, the phenotype are tall plant height and short plant height. There can be more than two phenotypes, but right now we are keeping our examples simple. There are more terms that are used in genetics to describe genotypes. The term homozygous means that you have two copies of the same allele. You can be homozygous dominant if you have both copies of the dominant allele, such as two capital letter B's. Or you can be homozygous recessive if you have two copies of the recessive allele, such as two lowercase b's. The prefix homo means same. Another word for homozygous is purebred. The term heterozygous means that you have one copy of each allele. The prefix hetero means different. Another word for heterozygous is a hybrid. If you are heterogeneous or a hybrid, you have one dominant allele and one recessive allele, such as capital B and lowercase b. A Punnett square is a tool used to predict the outcome of a particular cross between two organisms. Recall that through the process of meiosis, different copies of your alleles end up in different gametes. By using a Punnett square, you can determine the possible offspring that may be produced when different gametes fuse to form a zygote. Let's learn how to use these. Use our example of height in pea plants here. The first step is to put the female's genotype to the left of each square, one letter per row. If a dominant allele is present, it goes before the recessive one. These letters represent the female's eggs with the possible alleles. Second step is to put the male's genotype above the square. One letter per column. If a dominant allele is present, it goes before the recessive one. These letters represent the male sperm with the possible alleles. Next step is to distribute each allele or letter in the boxes to the right for the female and below for the male. It doesn't matter if the female or male allele is listed for each box, but we generally list the dominant one first. The colors of each letter are to illustrate where they come from. Recall that one allele comes from the female and one from the male. And the Punnett square is used to help determine the possible offspring. So now we analyze the results. For the genotypes, there is a 1 out of 4 or 25% chance that the offspring will be two capital T's. There is a 2 out of 4 chance or 50% chance that the offspring will be a capital T and a lowercase t. And there is a 1 out of 4 or 25% chance that the offspring will be two lowercase t's. For the phenotypes, there's a 3 out of 4 or 75% chance that the offspring will be tall. There's a 1 out of 4 or 25% chance that the offspring will be short. The type of crosses we have been talking about concerns something called complete dominance. This occurs when one allele is completely dominant over another. In the example we have been using, tall is completely dominant over short in pea plants. If there is at least one copy of the tall allele, then it is expressed in the offspring. Another type of dominance is called incomplete dominance. This occurs when the heterozygous offspring have a different phenotype than that of the parents. Neither allele is dominant over the other, so the heterozygous individual shows a third phenotype. For example, you can cross red flowers and white flowers and get pink flowers. The pink offspring have a red and a white allele, and since neither color is more dominant than the other, the heterozygous individual is a blend of two alleles.